My name is Dan Harton, and I lead the customer marketing team here at hireEZ. We are so excited to have you join us today for a timely and important conversation around Agentic AI, a concept gaining traction in HR and talent acquisition. As AI reshapes how we recruit, retain, and develop talent, strategic adoption is no longer an option, it's essential. In today's webinar, we are going to explore how Agentic AI can move beyond buzzwords to become a proactive force in your HR tech stack, helping teams work smarter and faster. I brought in two individuals that I have so much respect for and I've been following for the last couple of years. First, we have Trent. He's the VP of Talent and Culture at Hatchworks AI. He's a leading voice in human capital innovation and a passionate advocate for integrating AI into HR practices. And then we all know Kyle Lagunas. He's the head of strategy and principal analyst at Aptitude Research. With over a decade of experience tracking tech trends, Kyle brings a unique lens into how organizations evolve through innovation. So let's dive in, explore how to turn AI from concept into a competitive advantage for all of your recruiting teams. First question to both of you. How do we define agentic AI? The term agentic has been thrown around in HR and TA circles, but some argue it's just another buzzword. How would you guys define agentic AI in the practical sense? And are there different forms of levels of how it's been used in organizations? Maybe Kyle, you can start.
I have no idea, Daniel. Next question. Of
I think
course,
that's
I'm.
literally the response that people get when you talk about this. They don't know, and that's okay, and that's why we're here to learn.
Yeah, no, absolutely it is. I think it's worth noting that look, agentic is very new, and so I think that some of what we have to say today, if you are watching this recording, like today, it's April 7th. If you're watching this July 7th, it might be different. That's actually how fast this stuff is going. For me, my job as a researcher, I'm supposed to find like some practical answers to these questions. As I see it, agentic AI is more autonomous than most of what we are using now. For example, I have my AI note taker that joined me today because I want to know the smart stuff that I have to say. It's going to transcribe it for me, right? But I've set it a rule where it's going to join my conversations. I've actually asked it to do this. It has some prompts built into it to give me a summary already. Like that is not, I don't really think that's agentic. Instead, these things are going to like they're not waiting for an input to answer questions. It's going to take actions based on context. Like if you think about writing a job description, you might write a job description and then you might go to a tool to see if there's any implicit bias in your language. Well, Agentic could actually tell you as soon as you use like right now it's checking for grammar, right? It could be telling you when you're using something that might be biased before you ask. Or something that might see like, oh, you're opening up a new job. This is a new job requisition for CSMs. I'm going to immediately pull up candidates from your CRM that are ready to go, CSM candidates, and I'm not going to ask, I'm actually going to go ahead and email them to let them know that a new job has opened up and that we'd like to talk. So I hope that helps. Like there are different levels, but practically speaking, it's something that's not waiting for you to tell it to do something. It's going to do that proactively.
Got it. Trent, what are your thoughts? What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Um, to me, I think of it as like the smarter external brain that actually follows through on things. I have all the best intentions of the world sometimes, but we forget things. I'm sure the three of us probably wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and go, "Crap, I didn't text that person back," or "Crap, I didn't work on that report that's due by the time I wake up tomorrow." You can have an AI agent that'll actually do that for you. For me, it is, going out and looking at what are the workforce trends. what is the new AI tech out there and how is it going to affect our workforce? What's going on in Bureau of Labor statistics and why do I care about it? So it's constantly out there searching that kind of stuff for me. And that's kind of halfway agent because I programmed it to do that. What I want to get to in HR is, you know, we have all these survey data. And what I would love is to have an agent that's looking at that internal survey data and it raises its hand and says, "Hey, Trent, we've got an anomaly here over in engineering. Here's what I'm seeing. I think you should check it out." That to me is going to be the game changer rather than me looking 90 days later and going, well, heck, if I would have actually stopped and looked back and done this every day, I would have been able to see this trend. I've kind of got AI watching my back. So I always use the Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man. I want my Jarvis, and that's what I'm excited about.
For sure. Every company has what you call their maturity levels. You wrote an
Mm,
article not too long ago, the 5 stages of AI in HR, and you outlined the
yes.
evolution of the AI maturity levels. Can you elaborate on how organizations can transition from, basic use of AI interactions to more of the
Mhm.
advanced applications like agentic?
Yeah, so that was not my brainchild. I was actually regurgitating something that Sam Altman had. I was just applying it to the HR world,
Sure.
where he was kind of looking forward and saying, "Okay, this is where we're going. Here's where we've already been. And I think we're kind of at stage two." So looking at going into the agentic world, I think is a far stretch. From most of the people that I speak with in, let's just say HR broad stroke, I don't even think they're ready for agentic because Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the people that I talk to, about 70, 80% call AI, which is actually an automated workflow. And they're not, it's not the same. You know, automated workflow is if this, then that. It is kind of like following an equation. And, we got to kind of have to get them into the next round, which is just interacting with a chatbot, which is still a little one way. You give it directions, it gives you a response. You can give it some formulaic stuff in your prompt to make sure that it's following within a certain parameters. So I think there's still a lot of education that needs to be done in that step before we even start looking at agentic. Because if you don't understand how an agent actually processes information, I don't care what kind of agent you put in, it's not going to work. And what typically happens in most organizations that are very risk averse is they don't set a tool up correctly and then point at it and say, "Hey, this isn't working. I told you it wasn't going to work." It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And my fear is that there are a lot of HR organizations out there that are putting in AI without any kind of concern, thought, forethought to governance, to the impact on its employees, the impact on its candidates. And then eventually, when inevitably something goes wrong, is going to point and say, "See, we weren't ready for AI." And that's a
Mm,
concern.
mm.
Sure.
Yeah, I think
I
what
was,
you're getting to there, Trent, is governance. I
Hmm.
mean, there are millions, maybe billions of use cases for AI. Yes, agentic in particular. There's a lot. We still don't understand how, like, at the functional level, practitioners, leaders, we don't know necessarily how these things work, and so we don't know what they really can do, or what it needs to operate effectively versus where it can go off the rails. We're just operating on a bunch of assumptions a lot of times. And which is okay. I don't think we need to be like have all of the answers to get some value out of these things, but we certainly need to be more literate about what these are, what they're not, how they work, how they don't. And then that way we can like these agents, they need autonomy in order to operate effectively. You would not let an intern have complete autonomy in your organization
Hmm.
without training them first, right? You're not going to
Hmm.
give every single person in your organization access to all of the most sensitive information that's in the HRMS or in the ATS, right? That's governance. That's what is helping human workers to find the lanes that they swim in and to find the way that they can contribute effectively. We need that same thing for AI. We need to make sure that we're putting the right guardrails in place that is going to enable these things to be impactful in the way that they're designed to be, and that they're not going to be messing things up in other ways. But I started with literacy there because we can come up with governance that is derived out of the legal and compliance. We can have governance that's derived out of IT, and we can have governance that's derived developed by HR. But in each of those lanes, there's implications and considerations that's lacking from the others.
Mhm.
And so I think that we need to have literacy and talent in HR around how these things work so that we can partner with legal, compliance, and IT to make sure any of the guardrails that the organization wants to put up to make these things work for us is going to make sure that it actually still works for us, right?
And I want to add one step to kind of a step beyond what Kyle just brought up in terms of literacy. Governance, absolutely. But then also too, there are so many HR tech companies out there selling AI, and it's not AI. And unfortunately, most people that are buying this, so you're paying a $40,000 a year upcharge for a ChatGPT plugin. Um, there's ways around it. So there's literacy not just in how to implement it and what the different types are, but I think too there needs to be some education on what exactly you should be asking to potential vendors and all of that. I spent some time at Transform going through the expo because I'm nosy, and it absolutely blew me away how many times I would say, "What's your AI strategy?" "Oh, well, we got AI in here." And I'm like, okay, why would I pay an extra $20,000 a year when essentially I could pay $20 a month and have ChatGPT do the same thing that you're doing here? So I think that, I just want to urge anyone that is out there actively looking at vendors, if you don't know what you don't know, then go and find someone, on your engineering team and say, this is what I'm evaluating. I really want AI. Tell them the problem that you're trying to solve and let them help you determine which questions you need to ask to really truly evaluate the HR tech. But
I think
start with
that's
the
a big
problem.
issue. I think that's a big issue right now because what I'm hearing from leaders is we want to utilize AI as much as possible. And then when you say, how are you going to utilize AI, they don't have an answer for you. They just want
Hmm.
it more of
Right.
it, want more of it because of the education piece of
Hmm.
fully understanding the workflow and have it semi-autonomous, having people actually drive the process and with it, along with the AI is crucial for sure.
Right.
Kyle,
And if
from
and
you,
just just a shameless plug, if you do have questions about governance, like I don't even know where to start, there's like three or four assets that we put out on our blog at hatchworks.com/blog. If you just type in governance, it's got everything that you need to know on it. So if you want to get started there, that might be a great resource if you're interested.
love it. Kyle, from your research, what are the key indicators that an organization is ready, maybe for higher levels of the AI maturity in HR practices right now?
Yeah, it's not super sexy, but I want it to be practical. The first is strong foundations, and I mean this at like strong data foundations. I think that having that literacy is really important. Uh, if you don't like if you don't have a clean house of like your data, these things are trained on interactions. It's trained on decisions. It's trained on profiles. It's trained on notes. Like there is a lot of data that these things need access to in order to be trained to be fit for your organization. There are data sets that it needs access to that might be out of bounds for TA that we might not be able to give it permission. There's just strong foundations there at the data level. That's one indicator. Is like, do you have a clean house? The other is alignment across different functions. I think that it is easy for TA. It has been easy for TA to go it alone and find a tool that we like, and then get budget for that tool, and then implement that tool. AI use cases are under immense scrutiny, and they should be. I think we need to be sure that we're all on the same page. We know where we're going, what we're trying to get done. That means TA needs to talk to HR. We need to talk to learning. We need to talk to the business. We can't just resource ourselves in isolation. That it just doesn't work anymore. The other is space to test and to learn. I know how it has felt to be like always on, everything's on fire, and we have cans of gasoline to put it out with. I get it. We're under a lot of urgency to deliver, but AI is iterative. There are very few solutions that just work magically out of the box. If any of you have used any of the major LLMs, I use ChatGPT is what I call her, ChatGPT. When I first started using it, it had no idea who I was or what I did. I had space to figure it out and make it work and give it context where now it's actually like one of my like prime employees. It does so much for me today. Like we have to have space to test these things and make sure that they work. It's not just flipping a switch and having it on. And the last, I've already said this, but this is like the drum I'm going to beat all the time is literacy. We need like not just one person like your Trent or your Daniel knows how this works and they'll run point on the project. Your whole TA team needs to know how these things work and how they don't. You need to have trust in these things. That means you need to be able to speak the language. And I think those are, again, foundational, not like really shiny, but this is that like foundational stuff that I see is going to drive a lot of maturity and help these things have an impact.
For sure. Trent, I know you responded in the Q&A, but maybe highlight that question that was asked and your response to that.
Yeah, so the question is Goldman Sachs is estimating 300 million jobs will be lost. I haven't seen that number. I have seen 89 million people will be affected by this by 2030 in terms of their job maybe being done away with, or maybe they can do it better with AI with fewer people. And then you've got 93 million new jobs that are being created. So I think, just I want to level set with this particular question because what you're finding in media, what you're finding, especially in HR, is like this doom and gloom, and I know I'm excited about AI. Is there going to be some hurt along the way? Absolutely. We experienced the same when we went to mobile, to web, to cloud. And what happens? The market readjusts, people get retooled, they get refined, and they get redeployed. The only concern that I do have is that AI is moving at such a pace. My concern is, can we keep up with that? Can we reskill and retool people quick enough to be relevant in the new job market? So, uh, the question at the end is, in the opinion, is AI really best option for humankind? The answer is yes. What have we always wanted to achieve? Work-life balance, right? I think, we have just settled for work-life integration, which means I can go and take 2 hours to go and take my dog to the park or take my dog and go do this, and I'll just work the extra 2 hours a little bit later as long as my work gets done. It's integration. I think that with the AI augmentation, artificial enhancements that we're going to have, we would be able to do the same amount of work that takes us 40 hours now, maybe in 20 hours. And what do we get to do with that other 20 hours? Maybe go live life. You know, I'm sorry. If it comes down to that, then the short answer is, will it be the best option for humankind? Absolutely.
Sure.
I have to respond to that though, because if HR is not able to sit in the room and inform some of the decisions that are being made, if we are just letting AI happen to us, then that potential impact to workforce is going to go unchecked. The business is going to
Hmm.
business, right? There are ethical impacts, but it's also we can't just cry foul and say, "Oh, we can't displace all these human workers." Like, why not? We have to have a material and informed answer to these questions. AI is going to happen to us if we are not in the position to drive AI innovation ourselves. I mean, I keep saying literacy, like that's why you cannot own the agenda if you don't speak the language, right? And so these numbers might get thrown out there, and a CHRO is going to be at a different business is going to be asked, what should we do? Like this is going to happen, and you can say, no, don't worry about that. Here's why we don't need to worry about that. Here's how we are integrating AI into our human work in order to augment our human workers. Like we have to have
Hmm.
real answers and not just, I don't know, off the top of our head responses. We have to come with the receipts to make sure that this isn't just happening regardless of our personal opinions on the matter.
And to quote my
So,
grandmother, she said that you can either be a victim of the change or the one that's leading it. And I prefer to be the latter, And I think that
Mm,
more HR people, we do need to be leading that and
mm,
saying, how do we reskill? Rather than getting rid of these 40 or 50 people that are in ops, is there a way, because we've already invested in them, is there a way that we can go and train them up and move them over here into this job that we're going to create that does not have anyone in the market that can do it now? That makes more sense than just doing what HR has always done is like, all right, fire these people, hire 20 over here. It's going to cause us to really sit down and rethink how we do human capital. And for that part of it, I'm really excited.
So you emphasize the importance if you're in that meeting aligning AI initiatives with clear business objectives, okay, because that's not
Mhm.
going to stop. What steps should HR leaders take to ensure that their AI strategies are effectively addressing that whole organizational goal that goes hand in hand with both of you guys talking on both ends? Like, how does that happen? And how do you, as a leader, step up and voice the concerns and the movement yourself? How do you do that? And how do you align those initiatives?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's back to basics. I think that building your business case for new innovation has to be thinking like a couple of steps ahead. I mean, realistically speaking, I don't know anybody who works in recruiting who has like clocked in at 9 in the morning and clocked out at 5 at night and has only worked like, you know what I mean? Like that is working strictly within office hours. Most of us have been working more than 40 hours a week for a while. Now, I remember when I was on the practitioner side, we were implementing some AI to help like reduce a lot of the administrative workload for us. And a question was asked, and it was during COVID, so we were burnt the F out, right? Somebody was like, okay, so what happens? We implement all this AI and then half of us are going to get laid off because of efficiency gains. I'm like, well, maybe you'll go from working 70 hours a week to being back at 40
Mhm.
actual hours a week. And that's
Right.
the like if that is there's real concern, there's a lack of trust there. If I, as the leader of a project, and am not stepping ahead and saying, all right, yes, we are burnt out, we are working more than 40 hours a week right now. The initial return on investment is to get us closer to an average standard working workload, and then like increasing our operating capacities to where we can keep the same headcount and operate at 40% more, or like 40% greater efficiency or productivity. It's like it's yes, and it's not just we're going to reduce the work hours. If I had said we were reducing our working hours by 40%, finance is going to be like, I'm sorry, so people are going to be working 30 hours a week instead of 40? No, not on my watch. Let's cut those heads. Instead, I'm saying we're already out over capacity. This is going to bring us
Mhm.
down to a standard operating capacity while still continue to perform at that level. You've really got to weave that into your business case. Otherwise, they're going to be looking for heads to roll. That's finance's job, right?
For
And
sure.
on the piece of where do you put in AI, and just Sarah asked a question and I just responded. One thing that I find is that we don't start with the problem. All right. So this is where we need to go. This is the product enhancement that the company needs to make. We know that it's going to require an X% increase in AI knowledge on the software development side. All right. That's the problem that I'm trying to solve. Is there a tool out there? All right, so we need to get in, and are our developers using a tool like Cursor or other tools that will actually enhance their productivity, kind of take some of the grunt work, get it to almost a POC, and then them come in and add the value add there. If not, let's do some training on that, because that's a way that we can take our current staff, to Kyle's brilliant point, take our current staff and increase their productivity by 30 or 40% without increasing costs. That increases ROI on the largest asset in the firm, which is its people. The other part is starting with the employee journey. And by employee journey, I mean, I'm including candidates, because it's kind of like you're going to work for me now, you're going to work for me later. But as soon as I talk to you, I'm going to find a place for you. It just may not be right now. So we look at the entire employee journey. Where in the sentiment process do I absolutely need a human, you know, negotiating an offer? I'm not ready to hand that over to AI yet, especially at an executive level. It's a song, it's a dance, it's a dating. There's a little game that you have to play. There's no way in the world I can code an AI to be able to do that as it stands right now. In the future, we'll see. are there some other activities that I have to do? And, especially if you work under OFCCP, the amount of freaking process and paperwork that you have to do just to be able to check all the boxes. What if you can have AI automate that and you actually, I don't know, spend time asking a candidate, where do you really want to be? What kind of job are you looking for? Don't worry about the job you applied for. What job, Daniel, do you want to do? Because there may be a job that you didn't even know that you needed to apply for. But if I'm just doing a cheek in the seat conversation, which is what most recruiters only have time to do now, then I'm going to put you in the wrong position. And you're going to feel burnout. You're going to feel, just going to further give recruiters a bad name. I don't want that. I want human connection. So I like to quote Brad Owens from my podcast. He said that whenever he's looking at automation and AI, his rule of thumb is if it does not deepen a relationship with a client, a hiring manager, or a candidate, there's room for AI to come in. And I think that's a great kind of golden rule to look at how do I incorporate AI effectively and efficiently and in the right places in my organization.
Kyle, when you're talking to leaders right now on the discussion of the adoption, you highlighted in some previous posts of it's a mindset shift of utilizing that. Kind of highlight what you mean by that and what leaders are saying within the industry right now.
I mean, a lot of us are still looking at AI as like some magic thing where you wave a wand and it does this like suddenly we have AI. I think that there is a lot of demystification that's occurring. Hopefully it's demystification without disillusionment because AI can really do a lot for us, but some people have not implemented it most effectively. I think that first is making the value proposition real for your key stakeholders. Understanding the real anticipated impact, the real opportunity, and maybe even giving them an opportunity to contribute to like a real viable solution. Not just you bringing AI to them, inviting them to figure out how we can implement AI across the function. Another piece is like celebrating wins and telling the story. I think that celebrating wins identifies best practice, like how is this actually working here, and how could I use this? But I think it also like it's not like a huge transformative thing, like just when you turn on like auto-generated job descriptions, like it's not a gigantic win, right? But there are wins that come with these things. So I think that it's like building that momentum with celebrating the wins. And the other piece is like just being prepared to tell the story. We're not just talking about change management that comes from adopting a new piece of tech. We're talking about culture transformation that comes with being AI augmented. I think that there is going to be a lot of unintentional misuse of AI. We're putting a lot of easy buttons across the operations. People are going to be clicking that easy button a lot. I think that people are also going to be experimenting with these tools outside of any enterprise governance. I think we need to be prepared to tell that story a lot about how to use this the right way. Yeah, I think we need to be as at the forefront of the conversation as much as we can. Although again, I just cannot like stress this enough. AI is going to happen to us unless we're out there leading how it happens.
Do you think that companies right now, it's the race for AI and usage and use cases, how they're utilizing it? Do you think they're less inclined to share with others that, hey, this is how my company's utilizing the success we're having because they don't want people to adopt what they're doing? Kind of like, a sourcing hack or a sourcing, it was the, hey, I have a secret sauce I'm not going to share. Or are people having conversations of saying, hey, what are you doing? Because they don't want to be the first failure in, the huge debacle.
Yeah. Trent, what do you think? I mean, I feel like you're out there talking a lot about it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that there's not a lot of case studies and success stories being shared by businesses because they're not really using AI yet. They say they are, but they're not. One of the things that we find is that when we go into an organization to try and talk about AI, sometimes we have to leave with a workshop. of really doing the literacy part, doing the exploratory, the discovery, and then saying, okay, here are some use cases. Now we can actually go tackle because people are just kind of taking a wrecking ball with AI. And so we need to transform the organization into AI. Fantastic. What does that mean? Does it mean
Sure.
accounting? Does it mean finance? Does it mean operations? Are you going to turn over all your client interactions to AI? Like, it is a very, very broad stroke. The other thing that we're finding is that no one owns AI. And I really think that there is going to become a pressing need for an AI officer at the org level, and for enterprise, there will probably be an AI officer in each different division. So in HR, there will be an AI strategy person who's responsible for the governance, the compliance, the strategy within HR, and aligning that to the organizational goals. I think we're probably going to see that in the next year, if I had to bet. But don't let people fool you. There's a lot of companies out there that have not the first wherewithal of how to use AI effectively in their business, but they're just putting on a front. Like, oh yeah, we got this AI thing down. But you pull back the curtain and it's just a little man behind a curtain.
For sure.
I don't know. I feel like there is some of that, but I am also seeing that people are reticent to share because they don't want dirt on their face.
Mm.
Or because like we don't have the space to fail forward because the stuff we do is so sensitive, right? We can't lose any of the precious credibility that we have. But I will say at the peer-to-peer level, I mean, I we are at a point where people are even second and third generation of AI solutions, or even just automation, doesn't matter. And people are willing to share more at that peer level of what's working and what's not. The big published case studies are gonna be over polished and light on the details of the lessons learned and how things didn't work. But I am having more and more people in my research life that are willing to share with me what's really working and what's not. Now, are they off the record? Yes. Can I write an anonymous story about how that worked, like and why without citing them? Also, yes. And so I think that there's, yeah, there are people that are talking a big game, but there are also people afraid to share anything that didn't go quite right. I think that we need to be getting I'm loving being at events more where we are actually talking to each other a bit more about what's really going on. And I think that yeah, so I'm seeing a little bit of the other side, Trent.
All
So
right.
the question that I was answering was more from interacting with businesses, not interacting within HR, just to kind of
Okay,
put
okay.
some, yeah, yeah, I didn't clarify that. I'm sorry.
All right, last question, then we can open it up to the users. How can organizations proactively prepare for these changes? Because the changes are happening already or going to be happening at your organization, and maintain a competitive edge amongst everyone else. Like, how does someone prepare for these changes coming? Kyle, how about you go?
I was going to say
Um,
brains before beauty.
well, sometimes you don't have to choose between either. You get both. Yeah, I mean, I think a part of it is leaning in to your knowledge gaps. I think that now is the wrong time to lean back into our traditional expertise of HR or talent. I think that we do need to be leaning in. And so that is also, I mean, it's a win by building relationships and inroads with your counterparts in IT and in legal and compliance. I think that there is an excellent opportunity for us to be building relationships with the people who are going to make or break our best ideas. The path from ideation to execution is long and complicated. I think that we need to be taking the opportunities to find out what our co-collaborators in the organization care about and how much they know about where we're at. These functions are ultimately designed to help us and to protect the business. I think we need to be leaning into that a bit more instead of reverting back into like our HR and recruiting space.
Yeah, intellectual curiosity and adaptability, I think, are going to be the two things that are going to separate the high performers from those that don't necessarily define themselves as that. Um, I, th- I always like to encourage people, please remember YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. And if you look at it generationally, it's even larger. There is so much knowledge out there. So just start with some intellectual curiosity. You have a problem. I wonder if AI could solve this. Go and type in YouTube, can AI solve X problem? You're going to get someone out there that has already solved the problem. Chances are they're probably going to walk you through how they did it. Do a share screen. That's how I learned about Nathan. It's a no code agent builder. I'm not a software developer. I look at that stuff and that shit just makes my brain shut down. But I can get into something that was no code. I never knew that there was stuff like that out there. Now I'm like, let me see if I can build an agent for that. And I use Claude to help me program it. Where did I learn that? By asking the question on YouTube and watching people that are way smarter than me do it step by step by step. So that way I'm learning in my own way, my own time, and in my own comfort level too. So I would say remain adaptable and remain curious, and then go out there and just find someone that's already solved the problem and learn from them.
Hmm.
Awesome. Any last minute words of advice between you two? And if you have a question, feel free to throw it in the chat right now. We have maybe 1 or 2 more minutes. But any
Yeah,
last minute words of advice?
I mean, I honestly just think play with the tools. I was sitting next to an HR business partner last week, and she had never used any of the major LLMs for her work at all. And I was like, well, girl, get on it. Like, and because like three of us at the table were gobsmacked. We were like, oh my God, I use it every day. But that was where we kind of got excited. Not like we weren't like, condemning her. We were like, oh my God, girl, you have to use it for this. You should try it for that. Like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, we really need to be using these tools and to figure out how they work for us. I think it's just like lean into it. We haven't, you didn't get to used to play with a new ATS or play with a new assessment tool, right? Like, the new tools for us now are available at the consumer level. You should be getting your hands on it, just like we used to for social and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Love it.
And find people who are a little bit ahead of you that enjoy teaching. Like I loved Kyle's whole demeanor change when he was talking about, oh, well, try this and change because
Yeah.
he's a teacher. He loves to enable people through knowledge. Find other people like that are just not light years ahead of you, but just a little bit ahead of you, and make sure that you stay close to them and ask them, hey, this is a problem. Have you already solved it, or do you know someone who does? And there are several of us out there that go, that's beyond me, but let me connect you over with someone that can really kind of, explain it and get into it. And I think the other thing too is that you're going to see a lot of, I can't say the other word I want to, but a really bad word, um, news out there about HR. People love the doom and gloom. I want to encourage everyone. Yes, 300 million. That's the target. But what's the flip side of that? All right. That might be 300 people, 300 million people that hated their job. But now, because of some new jobs that are being produced by AI, they may actually enjoy going into work. Flip yourself. It's hard some days, especially today whenever I've got Yahoo Finance on this screen. I don't know why I'm looking at it. It's hard to kind of try to find the optimism, but there is a lot of fantastic things that AI will do for the HR practice, and I just want to encourage you, go and find them because it'll be easy finding all the negative stuff. AI is going to come for your job, and okay, fantastic. Who was that? Joel. I love Joel whenever he quotes AI is going to replace the recruiter. And let's see how AI handles a hiring manager that can't build a damn job description. Let's see how that's going to work.
Hi, I love your response to that question. It said, ask the vendor to introduce you to customers like you, pick their brains.
Hmm. Yep.
So that's my goal too. So if you have questions of how hireEZ Agentic AI is working, I will give you an intro to the people that are utilizing or using it right now. For example, Trent definitely
Call
have
me.
done that in the past, and he's a straight shooter and will tell you how it is. So
Hmm.
again, I want to say thank you so much, Kyle. Thank you so much, Trent, for taking the time and speaking about this. It was really insightful, and I learned a ton. Hopefully, the audience did as well. If you're interested in learning more about the hireEZ new Agentic AI product, feel free to book a demo. That's probably the best way to do it, or connect with Trent and get his ideas and his thoughts on the whole thing. So
It
this
is
will
wicked and long overdue.
this webinar will be recorded and put up on our YouTube page later in the week. So make sure you're following our socials so you can get a replay of that. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me or book a demo at hireEZ.com. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Daniel.
Bye,
Bye, Kyle.
guys. Bye. I love you.
The future of talent acquisition isn't coming. It's already here. See for yourself at hireEZ.com.